Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. Assalamu alaikum everyone and welcome to our session on our healing into prayer, going back to our prayers and healing whatever gets in the way of this, whether it is deeper meanings, whether it is our own trauma, whether it is some conditioning. So we want to go a little deeper into this. And for that, I really want to share an excerpt from a beautiful book. I really recommend that you guys read it. I'm going to share my screen. Mhm. Okay, so the book that I am using today, it's called The Practice of the Presence of God and the Spiritual Maxims by Brother Lawrence. This book is a book that has been recommended by the current Pope, and the recommendation is definitely something really brilliant because I've been studying this book with a teacher of mine, a mentor of mine, and it's so beautiful because this particular man, Brother Lawrence, he used to wash dishes in the kitchen of a church, and his teachings are so simple and so profound. Last time we read a name of Allah, which said, Allah, you are the one for whom everything is simple and easy. Okay. So, this book is a collection of things that were recorded by his students or the letters he wrote. And I want to read out to you guys something that I read today. So I'm just going to find that page in a second. So just a second. Okay, so the maxim that I'm going to share today is so this book is open on my Kindle right now. Okay. This is page number. I don't know where I've gone, sorry. And so this is the part 2. Yeah. So this is what I want to read to you guys. This number 4. A soul is the more depend a soul is the more dependent on grace, the higher the perfection to which it aspires. And the grace of God is the more needful for each moment. So this is a little old English because this book is from 1800s. And then we can elaborate a little bit. I'm going to. Yeah, a soul is the more dependent on grace, the higher the perfection to which it aspires, and the grace of God is the more needful for each moment, as without it, the soul can do nothing. The world, the flesh, and the devil join forces and assault the soul so straightly and so untiringly that without humble reliance on the ever present aid of God, they drag the soul down in spite of all resistance. Thus, to rely seems hard to nature, but grace makes it become easy and brings with it joy. Now, so there are a few of these that I will be reading today. I just want you all to, hold on to your thoughts perhaps. If there is something that you guys want to share urgently, you can always raise your hand and share it. But reading from books like these is really beautiful because these are people who have already walked a path. And when we do namaz, we recite Surah Fatiha every single rakat. We're reciting Surah Fatiha so many times in one day. And there's a verse in there which says that, oh Allah, guide me to the straight path. Ehdina siratal mustaqim, siratal ladina an'amta alayhim. On the path of those who are blessed. Now, if we look at Surah Fatiha has 7 verses, and it is the beginning of the Quran. And what scholars say is that within Surah Fatiha is encapsulated the entire teachings of the whole Quran. So the part where we have role models comes under this category where we say, oh Allah, guide me to the path of the ones who are blessed. Why do we need people who have already walked the path? Is because, logically speaking, the path of those who have been blessed is the path that has already been treaded. They've already walked that path, they've made their mistakes. So, in a way, their experience becomes something that can make our journey less tedious. And they've made all the mistakes, they've been through the ups and downs, the valleys and the hills. And following them kind of gives us the shortest pathway, even though it has to be our own path. And so the Prophet, in his own way, and all the saints in their own way, showed us a path that they have walked. And in that sense, when we are praying to Allah, show us the path of those who are blessed, we are actually praying that Allah show us the path of these people who have already been there, done that, who have all the information for us, who can show us how to go about this journey. So this number 4 says, when we are busied or meditating or spiritual things, even in our time of set devotion, whilst our voice is rising in prayer, we ought to cease for one brief moment as often as we can to worship God in the depth of our being, to taste him, though it be in passing, to touch him as it were by stealth. Since you cannot but know that God is with you in all you undertake, that he is at the very depth and center of your soul. Why should you not thus pause an instant from time to time in your outward business, and even in the act of prayer, to worship him within your soul, to praise him, to entreat his aid, to offer him the service of your heart, and give him thanks for all his loving kindnesses and tender mercies. I would like to hear your thoughts on this passage that I just read. Any thoughts anyone would like to share before I go into my thoughts? Did anything strike? Yes, Kulsum, go ahead.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum. So what struck me was how distracted I can only speak for myself. I get in prayer, and I think what I liked over there was, even when we're praying and we're saying namaz out aloud, we might be distracted, but even for that 1 minute or one breath, if we can actually connect to our inside, our heart, and actually feel his presence with us for that moment, that is also something. And I find that quite beautiful because, even if the whole prayer is distracted, but that one moment, that will also make a difference. And I think I'm going to try that.
That's so beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for touching on that. Any other thoughts? So if you guys have seen the movie Inception, there's a dream inside a dream, and then there's a dream inside that dream. And there is something about nature which we call fractals. You can write this down. Fractals is something which is, which you see in science. You see people talking about fractals in philosophy. Fractals is this theory that everything is branching into many of the same, identical, and yet it is identically the same. Okay, so when the tree branches out, each branch looks much like the original trunk of the tree. And if you were to break a little branch out of the tree, that branch will emulate or look exactly like the actual big tree. So everything is moving in say replication of its mother. There's a DNA, there's an evidence of the source of the mother in each branching out of anything. And this is what it is, that within a prayer, can you be in a state of prayer? And within that prayer, can you be in a state of awareness? So it's about being aware inside the awareness, or being aware of the awareness. Can you be aware that you're aware? Does that make sense? So a lot of masters have written about that. To be aware that, hey, I was aware in that moment, and then to constantly going back to that moment. And what is beautiful with what Kulsum pointed out is that we ought to seize for one brief moment as often as we can to worship God in the depth of our being, to taste Him, though it be in passing, and even if it is within our prayer, and even in the act of prayer. So now what we're going to see is, what I want to share here is that there is a protocol which we learn from those who have been on this path. There is something that we learn from the people who have gone into this path, this journey. Their wisdom is extremely powerful and effective for us to be able to figure out our own path. And now I want to, so that is one thing, but it said that something has to center us. In Islamic geometry or sacred geometry, the symbol of the circle, which is drawn with a compass, and there's a point that is at the center of the circle, it denotes the theology that we follow, that in the center is the source. The center is the source of everything. And the circular image is saying that there's an existence which has no beginning and no end, because the circle has no beginning and no end, and no corners. And then every point becomes a point of beginning, and every point can be a point of end and a new beginning from there. So there's a death and a rebirth of the soul in motion. There's a constant movement within our growth. But it has to have a center. It has to be anchored somewhere. There has to be something where the axis can be drawn from. And then Allah says that I have put my signs everywhere outside of you and inside of you, and we see the solar system. And the planets are always in a circular motion, and there's a sun to them. There's a central body that is the point, that is the central point of gravity, which holds the other orbits in their due course in their orbit. We too need to have that center around which we can decide to let our lives revolve around. Why? Because if I were to ask you all a simple question, if I were to say, me as a human, I'm reliable, would that be a true statement or a false statement that I'm reliable? I don't mind being unreliable. You guys can say the truth. Reliable or unreliable? Someone is stuck. I think someone needs to say.
I'm
Okay.
just like, wait, what is the question? Should I believe that you're reliable?
Do you believe
Are
I'm a
you
reliable? I'm like a reliable person. Like,
based
if you
on what I know of you already? Yes, you are a reliable person.
but if I schedule a meeting with you, is there a chance that I'll make it, or there's a very good chance I might not make it?
That is an outcome we can't control.
Exactly. So my
It's
outcomes
not
are
an absolute truth.
right. And so as a human being, someone is being very nice. Usually I'm late, but but she's being really nice, and she's saying I'm a reliable person. But in truth, I'm not, because my moods can change, my thoughts can change. I can be a complete psychotic person if God wills, may Allah not do that. But I don't have a lot of control over myself. And in that sense, I'm not a truly reliable source to depend on completely. And neither is any other human being, neither is any other um, is any other entity that is so reliable. How about systems that have been placed in the world, like systems of electricity, systems of AI, systems of computing? All of these things have been created by human beings who are trying to reduce the probability of unpredictability in all these systems. And yet, none of the systems are reliable. And if I pin myself, if I make myself the axis that I rely on, deep down inside, I know I'm not reliable. I can change as a person. My likes and dislikes can change. My moods can change. My theology can change. My things that make me happy can be very fluid. And so there can be a constant change in me, which does not make me a reliable central grounding point. So when it comes to any human being, they themselves cannot be anchored in themselves. Okay. And the world around us is also giving us enough evidence that it is not reliable. Everything changes, climate changes, uh, flights are not reliable, there are delays. No matter how far we try to make life predictable, stable, reliable, there is always something that will throw us off. So life itself is in a lot of motion and constant evolution. So we cannot be relying and grounding ourselves in anything outside of us either. Not myself and not the world I live in. And that creates a lot of uncertainty around about what is going to be my orbit like. What am I going to be doing? And that is where the imagery of a center around centering ourselves around the Kaaba brings to us a perspective. Okay, it's just a perspective. The Kaaba is giving us a visual understanding of you have to have a central point of grounding, and then you orbit around that. And the planets mostly, my son taught me that there are some planets that do go clockwise. So I cannot say all planets go anti-clockwise. But majority of the planets around the sun, they go anti-clockwise, and we go around the Kaaba anti-clockwise. There's a system, there's a rhythm to nature that is connecting us to that anchoring point, that central point that can give us some stability. And our belief system is constantly taking us back to that entity and that power that is unchanging. It doesn't change. There's no change in God. Why? Why does God have to be an unchanging reality? Is because at any point, if there's a change, it will either denote an addition to God or a subtraction to God. And the subtraction means a lack, and addition means a previous lack. And God is not lack. God is the most whole, complete, perfect being. And I don't know who that is, and I don't know where that is, and I don't have a complete understanding of it. But I do feel like worshiping a God who is complete, whose knowledge is complete, whose vision is complete, whose wisdom is complete, who can see the good in everything and take it in that direction. I can trust that entity to be the pilot of my life, pilot of my eternal life. So I would like to believe in a power that that is so stable that if I anchor myself into that power as the central authority in my life, I can get some sense of stability and some sense of say it will help me get over the restlessness or the anxiety and bring me to a place of rest and ease. And that is something what Islam kind of proclaims, that it is deen fitran. It is a way of life that aligns with our psychology, right? And so if we look at growth, then anchoring again becomes very important. Again, with the signs we see around us, if we look at a seed, the seed is planted in the soil. And as a child, I remember I used to be so curious to see if the seed is growing or not. I used to keep moving the soil and I used to want to see inside if the roots are coming out or not. And that's precisely what would prevent the seed from growing. I never had those, green hands. I could never, plants never really became my friends in that way because of the impatience, right? And yet, for anything to grow, there is a protocol. Again, there is a sign in there. To grow, you have to be anchored with patience in that same place. You have to be anchored for a while, and growth will show its symptoms with some time invested. That time, then we can say, is faith. When you anchor yourself in that grounding, and then you give yourself the time to see the outcome after some time, that waiting period becomes faith. To have faith that you have anchored yourself in the right place and it will reap you the result you're looking for. So if we look at a seed that goes underground, not only is the seed alone, it is alone completely. There is no like twin or friend or anybody. Usually the seed is alone in its journey. It is in the darkness of the soil. There is no access to light under the soil. It is completely buried. And under the soil, there is weight of the soil that weighs down on the seed. In that sense, if we take it as an analogy for life, we also need the circumstances where there is something so painful that we can call it the darkness, where we have no other way but to change. The second thing is there is pressure. There is darkness, there is pressure, and in that moment of growth, there is no light. So the time between darkness to reaching the light is the time of faith. You can come into a place of actively practicing faith moment to moment, because right now you can't see the light. Then with time, when you have kept yourself in that anchorage, in that position for a while, and there's no movement, there's complete stillness of faith, the roots start to grow. And you need the roots to grow deep enough so that the shoot can also break out of that seed. Now, when the seed is breaking out, in that moment, the seed will feel like I'm being annihilated. Because once the roots and the shoot come out, the seed doesn't feel like a seed anymore. It cannot call itself a seed. So it is not the seed, and yet it is a manifestation of the very seed. So the identity has completely demolished, and yet the essence stays the same. And this is where we, as human beings, understand what it's like to go back into our essence, but constantly shed our different identities. And darkness, pressure, difficulty, constriction has that power to do that. And that is where faith can become a very integral part of guiding the journey. Any questions so far? So I'm going to read out something. And it's on my WhatsApp. I'm just going to share the screen. Because it's a dialogue, so it'll be nice if you have the text in front of you. Okay, so, hey God, hello. I'm falling apart. Can you put me back together? God says, I would rather not. Why? Because you're not a puzzle. What about all of the pieces of my life that are falling down onto the ground? God, let them stay there for a while. They fell off for a reason. Take some time and decide if you need any of those pieces back. You don't understand. I'm breaking down. God, no, you don't understand. You are breaking through. What you are feeling are just growing pains. You are shedding the things and the people in your life that are holding you back. You aren't falling apart, you are falling into place. So relax, take some deep breaths, and allow those things you don't need anymore to fall off you. Quit holding on to the pieces that don't fit you anymore. Let them fall off, let them go. Once I start doing that, what will be left of me? Only the very best pieces of you. I'm scared of changing. I keep telling you, you aren't changing, you are becoming. Becoming who? Becoming who I created you to be. a person of light and love and charity and hope and courage and joy and mercy and grace and compassion. I made you for more than the shallow pieces you have decided to adorn yourself with that you cling to with such greed and fear. Let those things fall off of you. I love you. Don't change. Become who I made you to be. I am going to keep telling you this until you remember it. There goes another piece. Yep, let it be. So I'm not broken? God, of course not. But you are breaking like the dawn. It's a new day. Become. Any thoughts? Any anything you guys want to share?
Sounds like
Yeah,
such a warm, beautiful conversation. And it is, you know, it's moving. And yet, when one is going through that breakthrough, it feels anything but at the time.
absolutely, absolutely. But what I want to say here is that over so many years of meeting so many people, I have not really come across anyone who hasn't resonated with that story, with that dialogue. And there's like this inner click, like, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Because looking back, you find what you were becoming through that experience. And the constriction and the pressure is what is necessary to push us through that dark moment. And what happens is that, Rumi says, if Mary didn't have labor pains, there would be no Jesus. Mary is also us, Jesus is also us. If we don't go through those labor pains of contraction and expansion, we are not birthed into the new person we're supposed to be birthing into. And how the masters say die before you die, it means dying to your old self and shedding all of the things you thought were your identity. And when you shed those, a new person emerges who has peeled off certain layers. And this is going to be a circular journey. Like, I would like to suggest to you guys a movie called Finding Joe. Finding Joe. I don't know if you guys seen it or not. Finding Joe is an amazing movie to watch. It's on YouTube. It's available for free. It talks about the hero's journey suggested by John Campbell. And it has a lot of parables that relate to a lot of what we've been studying through the Quran. Karen Armstrong, she's a brilliant writer. She's written on so many faith systems, and she has a book right from the beginning of her journey, and that is called it's called The Spiral Staircase. And Oprah actually asked her, "Why did you name your book The Spiral Staircase?" And she said, "Well, because the spiritual journey goes in circles. You keep revisiting your old points that you've already passed. And you feel like, I thought I'd healed this. Why am I revisiting this? It feels like a failure in that moment. Because say, for example, you had this wound from your childhood and you worked and you worked and you worked and you healed it. And then you realize, wait a second, I think I'm back visiting that same wound again. Say if you had a father wound and you thought, now I can meet my dad completely cordially. I'm really happy. We're doing really good. And then something comes up and you fall apart and there's an argument and there's bitterness that comes up and you feel like a failure in that moment saying, hey, I thought I healed this. Why is this coming back? And then there's a whole lot of confusing, complex emotions that come up. But when we have this information that healing takes its turn in circles, it's because you will revisit. Why are you revisiting? So Karen Armstrong said, the reason I called it a spiral staircase is because you feel like you're going in circles, but you're actually climbing that staircase. You're always ascending that staircase. You're constantly learning, but you do revisit those points in your journey. And why do we do that? Why is it so important that the journey has that? Is because there are circular unveilings within us. We also visit parts of us deeper every time as time goes, as we keep actively working within ourselves, we will also go in circles within ourselves, deeper and deeper. And the deeper we go within ourselves, the deeper we can meet the journey outside of us. And so, say initially, if you could just deal with the first 2% of that trauma, because that was your capacity. After 5 years, perhaps you've developed 6% more. And now you can deal with that wound 6% more. And that's why you will keep revisiting that wound again and again, but always learning and growing, inshallah. So I wanted to bring in the idea of the center, the axis, the orbit, and how it grounds us. The idea that if we don't ground ourselves and if we don't root ourselves in a particular axis, particular grounding central point, then we are constantly uprooting that seed. It can't grow. And constantly moving between things can cause that. It can cause that subtle imprint on the soul body, because our soul body is constantly collecting imprints. And so if we're constantly moving between different things and we're not sure about it, we want to come to a place of surety also, which is why Hazrat Ali says, don't be a born Muslim, become a Muslim through your own conviction. So go into your information and truly embody it with conviction, not just because you were born in it. And once we have that conviction, then no one can derail us from that journey. There is no price that can buy us out of that conviction. It centers us, it anchors us. And once the roots start growing due to that patience and faith, because that journey will take patience and faith, then the growth is guided by those people, as we said in Surah Fatiha, the people who are blessed. Now, over here, it's important to talk about what blessing looks like. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that, and someone, if you can remind me and just make a note that I will need to share this verse later on, that Allah says that don't look at those who have been blessed in a worldly way and think that that is a sign of success. No, that is not a sign of success in any way. But Allah is saying that the ones who are successful are the ones who are muttaqi. Now, in Arabic, the word taqwa is usually translated as, traditionally it is translated as fear, but it's not really fear. It is God wariness. WEARINESS. God wariness. God wariness means you're constantly wary of a presence with you. There's a presence that is watching over you. And that's what enables us to have that accountability, that grounding, that point of centrality and anchoring, because there is a presence that is watching over us, that is constantly with us. And then the people who have walked this path, because it's an abstract path, right? You can't see things, you can't believe everything everyone is telling you. So there has to be certain kind of protocol, certain kind of guidance that enables us to follow this path with that conviction. And so in Tao Te Ching, the book of the Tao people, and I've said this, that when I discovered the meaning of the word Tao Te Ching, which is the book used by the people of the Tao faith, it means the etiquette of the path is what Tao Te Ching means. And it's the exact same name given to the book used by the Sufis in Islam, or the Arifs in Islam, which is called Sair wa Suluk. So the Suluk of the Sair we know like Sair Karna, like Ghumna Phirna, right? So the Suluk is the tariqa, the etiquette, the way of the path. And so in both traditions, and not just these two traditions, but in many, many traditions, we see a lot of similitude in this path. So coming from my own experience, because I was and am constantly, and we should all be in that search of the truth, the truth, the truth. When you do an interfaith research, when you go into different books and traditions and ancient wisdom, there's certain truths that are so identical, but they are so sparsed out by time, by geography, that there was no way that there was any connection of these two, say, civilizations, or these two communities, or these two tribes, or these two people, leaders who gave that knowledge to us, that you can't help but think that the knowledge that both of them received came from the same source. And the similarity kind of convinces you that this is the right path. And that has been my journey with Islam. And I would ask myself again and again, what if I was born a Jew? What if I was born a Christian? What if I was born a Sikh? Like, would I still choose Islam? And that query has led me into a lot of that research. And I'm going to show you some similitudes, and then, we will talk about prayer. So, I'm going to share the document that we are using generally, the PDF. Let me just go to it. Okay. So there's a part in the book which we spoke about in terms of the timings of the prayer. Now, the 5 times in one day that we are asked to, take out, if you calculate the actual namaz, it doesn't take more than like 2 minutes max to perform that one namaz. Okay. And when we look at these timings of the prayer, I want to show you guys the chapter where I think I added it to this. Let me just find it. I hope I have the. Okay, no, I forgot to add that portion here. So I'm going to open it on my page. Okay. So I want to share with you the sacred timings of the prayer. And I want to share that with you from the perspective of different faith systems. And I have a synthesis.
I think you have included it in the PDF.
Okay,
When
I
you
think
talk
I've
about
opened the old. Yeah, I
Zoroastrianism,
think. Yeah.
it's there. The
Is
part
there?
11.
Okay, I think I opened my old copy, so it didn't show up. Part 11. Oh, sorry. I struggle with this. My apologies.
It's right at the end, just
Can I
before
can I
notes.
can I make you a co-host in would you be able to share it on your screen or no?
No, I have a hard copy. I don't know where the PDF is.
Can you show us how
It's
pretty this copy is looking?
it's a black and white.
Oh, Okay. Okay. I think because I made a number of copies and then mine was like so many copies of, so I don't know which one is the newer version of the copy.
So if you start from right at the end, and because it's a few pages before you've left space for notes.
Okay.
So it's right at the end.
Fatma, should I WhatsApp it to you? I have it on my WhatsApp. It's starred.
Oh,
Should I,
right. Okay.
should I WhatsApp it? It's
Wait,
on
wait,
our,
just, yeah,
Yeah.
a little, okay.
Maybe I have it. Just a second. Is it there?
Almost there. No, you don't.
This.
And there it
Yes.
is. There it is.
Ah, sorry. Thank you so much. Thank you for that. Okay, so if you all can see this, it's a table which shows the connection of the timings of prayer to three major faith systems. The dawn prayer in Islam, Zoroastrianism, Hinduism. Okay, and above here, I have given the names also. So it says that in classical Hindu practice, Sandhya Vandana is performed at dawn, noon, and dusk. And some traditions expand to 5 times. Sandhya literally means junction, the meeting point of night and day. These liminal times are considered spiritually charged when veils thin and consciousness is more permeable. And this is the idea that makes you understand that all of these faiths, they're coming from the same source. They've just been evolving over time. And what Prophet Muhammad brought was something that had already been carried on the shoulders of, say, Buddha and Zoroaster. And he just kind of upgraded that system with the most advanced, say, the like we have the iPhone 17 Pro Max, right? And so Islam is kind of like that. But in Islam itself, in the literature that we have, the word Islam itself means surrender. Al-Islam wa huwa taslim. Taslim in Urdu means surrender. So the the whole system that in ego is what a faith system is, which has been evolving over centuries from ancient times onwards. And it's just a system that has been constantly being tweaked according to the growth of humanity. What is the growth of humanity? A very tangible thing that we can see is that, say, 100 years ago, slavery was legal. Okay. Only very recently, it was clearly universally understood that slavery is not normal or natural or something that should be encouraged. And so, in that sense, there has been an evolution of the complete entire human consciousness, apart from the people from the Epstein files who don't seem to understand what modern world is all about, who've gone back to their barbaric ways, who think human trafficking, abuse, war, no charter of human rights. For them, it's a barbaric world. But for most of us, there's a very clear understanding of the higher human consciousness, the ethics, the laws, the rights, and the wrongs that dictate to us what a supreme evolved being would behave like. And that is what Islam has actually been. So from Adam till Khatam. So Adam is the beginning. Khatam means the last, the prophet that ended the chain of prophets. From the beginning till the end, Islam has been one. The source of knowledge has been one. Just the messengers have been so many, bringing that same information in a more upgraded version. Now, what has happened with Hinduism and how it is so beautiful and attractive, for most of us also, is because it's 2000 plus years old, 3000, 5000 years old. There has been a lot of work that has been done into Hinduism, decoding and opening up the hidden meanings of their Vedas and the Upanishads. The same thing with Zoroastrian literature. A lot of work has gone into their literature as well. And a lot of beautiful work has been done in the Judaic literature. And one of the things that I was studying for some time was the secret of the letters of the Hebrew language. And the reason that was so interesting for me is because 98% of Hebrew letters and Arabic are identical. They sound the same. There's a slight difference. So when I did a workshop uh, with a Jewish lady on calligraphy and the secret of the alphabet, it was extremely eye-opening because we also have these letters in the Quran, which are the secret letters. They're the hidden letters, huruf-e-muqatta'at. And the Judaic literature has a lot of work done in the secrets behind these letters, which the Muslims haven't gotten a chance to do because we're relatively very young and new, and we haven't gotten that far with the research in our work. And so we can make use of the work done in the Jewish community, in the Judaic texts, and bring meaning to what is in the Quran through their text. So in the Quran, when Allah says that Allah makes no distinction between all the prophets, and Allah takes the name of all the prophets and says, I make no distinction, this is where we're coming to, that the underlying truth in all of them is the same. And everything in the Quran is connected to all of the faith systems before Quran. Quran actually stands on the shoulders of all of these previous faith systems that were just growing with time. They were evolving until Quran completed it and sealed it as the most modern scripture. And what we see in the previous scripture is also that there are a lot of answers that are given to questions in the Quran. So Quran has a lot of biblical stories, a lot of stories from the Talmud and Torah, and a lot of history that we can find our insights into through previous historical psalms and papers and documents and archives. So when we come to the idea of prayer, the 5 times prayer is not a new thing. Zoroastrians even today have 5 times prayer. And I can also PDF, and someone you can remind me, to send the 101 names of Allah that the Zoroastrians have, the Parsis. And the Parsis are, usually there's a misconception that they worship fire, but they don't. They worship one God. And their theology says that God is light, much like how we say God is light. So they say Allahu Nurus Samawat, like we say in the Quran, Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. And they also have their theology around Allah is the light, Satan, demonic things, evil things, all of that is darkness. Ignorance is darkness, knowledge is light. So we say Allah, the al ilmu nurun, knowledge is light. Then we say Allah is light. So all of these parables we have into understanding, oh, so God is the most knowledgeable, God is the most wise. Everything to do with light is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala according to Muslim literature, and so was for the Zoroastrians. The only thing was that in their temples, they always had a fire burning because in those days there was no electricity or bulbs or lamps. And so it was fire that denoted light of God, which is why they had fire in their temples. And much like many other religions that became adulterated, derailed over time, Zoroastrianism also got bits of shirk in it, polytheism in it, a lot of other things got into it. But predominantly, if you meet a Zoroastrian priestess or a priest. I met with a Zoroastrian priestess and had many long conversations with her. Her idea of Tawheed was remarkable. It was just oneness of God, monotheism, and God is light. So there are like 101 names of God that they also have, just like we have. It's in the language Astha, which is a very, very ancient language, which the Zoroastrians go by in their books. So the 5 time prayers was not a new introduction in Quran. It has always been there. And the method of namaz evolved over the 23 years of Prophet's expansion into Islamic teachings. It got kind of solidified around the latter time in Medina. So there are 2 divisions to the Prophet's life. There's a Meccan time and there's a Medinite time. The initial years were spent in Makkah, and the later time was spent in Medina. Now, in Makkah, we hear of very few friends of the Prophet who then migrated with him to Makkah. Why am I explaining this? Is because in Makkah, they were also praying, but there was no order, or there was no system to the prayer. Why? Because these people who were with the Prophet were Prophet's friends when Prophet had no money, Prophet had no power, he had no influence, he was a weak person politically, and he had not much following, and he was under attack from the Quraysh of Makkah. So these people were only with the Prophet for only one reason: their hearts were with the Prophet. They were so in love with the deen and the Prophet and the teachings and the truth that got them rights for the poor, rights for women, rights for the slave, rights for the non-Arabs, and the equality and the justice that the Prophet was talking about. These people were able to feel it in their heart, and they were aligned with this faith, and hence they were persecuted, they were killed, they were punished. And these people were extremely, you can say, spiritual in their connection to the Prophet. They were not being forced to worship a God. They wanted to worship this God. They were seeing the truth with their eyes of the heart. And so their form of worship and prayer was very sublime. It was almost like sitting, meditating, doing zikr of Allah, breathing, a lot of stillness. There was no ruku and sujood and qiyam. There were no portions to the prayer. That system of prayer evolved in Medina when Islam became a mass movement. And then there was the hukum, there was the decree to have congregational prayer, putting people together. There were people who were not truly into faith, but came into faith due to material benefits, money benefits, power benefits, political benefits. But they all had to become an ummah. And so a system had to be put into place. But nevertheless, this system that then evolved is one of the highly sophisticated systems. And within it, is a progression of prayer, which we can say is the most advanced compared to all of the others that we've seen before. Now, I will give you just one of my ideas why I feel it's so advanced is because the sajda. It's one of the distinguishing factors of namaz from, say, yoga or sitting in meditation and breathing, where we're generally told to keep our spine straight up. In namaz and in our hadith literature, the most recommended position for the body to get into a state of surrender and meditation stillness is sajda. So if we look at the body from the perspective of energy, we say that the energy flows from the Muladhara, the lowest chakra, and it kind of rises in Kundalini and comes all the way up to um, the pineal gland or the third eye or the crown chakra. And so we say that you should keep your spine straight up. However, if you look at the flow of energy in a sajda, there is a facilitation of the flow of that energy from the bottom of the spine to the head, because now you're literally forcing the energy to flow downwards. And that flow downwards comes into taking the highest point of the body, which is usually where we wear the crown and we feel like the king, and we put it down on the ground, surrendering to the higher power, higher king. So symbolically, in terms of somatic healing, in terms of body memory, and in terms of symbolism, it becomes an extremely powerful body posture to stay in sajda. And scientifically, we know that we are told to ground ourselves on earth because there's charge in the body that has to be diffused. Just like electrical systems have electricity, we have a lot of electricity in our brains because we have neural pathways being made and being broken constantly. And it uses tremendous amount of electricity, which can cause the lack of clarity and static in the brain. And once you put the front of your head down to the ground, you're grounding a lot of that unwanted static energy that creates a lot of static in our thought process. So in that sense, prayer then, the conventional prayer system given to us through the Holy Prophet is an extremely systematic and sophisticated methodology which enables us to follow in the path of those who are blessed. The people that we talk about in Surah Fatiha, they give us a shortcut, a path where we don't have to do trial and error. And over here, I want to bring in the idea of shafaat. We have this concept of shafaat in Islam, where people say that, the Holy Prophet is going to do our, say, I always thought of it as red tapeism, like bureaucratic manipulation, where Muslims are like, the Prophet will be at the gate of heaven and he will give us a special pass and then we'll just go into heaven. And it never made sense to me, because why would the most just person do something so unjustly? And the Quran is very clear that those who are, those who are Christians, Jews, and Sabians, who have belief in the hereafter, who have God wariness, taqwa, they will have nothing to fear, nor will they grieve. So then, why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say that Muslims will have precedence over others? Because Quran is not making that kind of distinction at all. And so what shafaat really means, if you look it up in, there is a Arabic lexicon dictionary, which I will share with you all. It gives you intense amount of detail of the Arabic root word and where it comes from. And if you research, the word shafaat in that dictionary, you'll find that shafaat actually means to put your foot in the footstep of another, to the extent that there are no two footsteps. So say, someone walks on the sand and I put my foot right into her foot. So much so that you can't say that there were two people who walked this path. It's just one path, right? Why? Because someone has already figured out the path. And if I put my feet into that path, it will be the quickest way for me to reach where someone has reached. That is the meaning of shafaat. So shafaat and the quick entry into heaven is not like a free pass to enter heaven faster just because you proclaim to be a Muslim, but it is by stepping into the footsteps of those who have already made it there, okay? Who have already done this thing, and they've given us a lot of information on how to tread this path, which is why we have the sunnah of the Prophet, the characteristics of the Prophet, the way he handled situations, the way he made alliances and made, set up the government that he set up, and the kind of agreements he did, and when did he fight these battles, and what did he do on a daily basis, how did he pray, how did he sleep. This is the reason why that sunnah becomes so important for us, because we would count him under those people who are blessed. So he was always smiling, he was always playing with children, he was always relaxed, he didn't have anything to worry. We would like to be anxiety free, we would like to be panic free, we would like to be worry free. And I will go into further detail of that in the next class, discussing the qualities of the people who the Quran says have no worry and no fear. So we will go into those verses, we will talk about where they're used, why they're used, what it entails. And then we will also go into some details on the translation of the verses that are usually recited in the Quran, in the namaz. So just just a little bit more into the prayers that we have in Islam. Across ancient civilizations, sacred time was never random, the rhythm of the sun structured devotion. Islam did not emerge in a vacuum. It refined the universalized and older human intuition that the turning of light and darkness mirrors the turning of the soul. In Islam, prayer times are tied directly to observable celestial shifts. Fajr is the true dawn, which is the first horizontal light. Zohar is the solar zenith, when the sun starts to decline. Asr is the shadow length shift. Maghrib is sunset. Isha is the disappearance of twilight. This is not arbitrary ritual scheduling. It is cosmically anchored worship, aligning the body to the geometry of the heavens. In Zoroastrianism, they have the five ghas. Zoroastrian daily worship is divided into 5 time periods called ghas, also structured around the sun. And then we have the names. Notice the similarity: 5 sacred divisions of light and darkness. Both systems anchor worship to natural light cycles, emphasize dawn and sunset transitions, and treat night as spiritually potent. Ancient Persia and Arabia shared cosmological awareness of the moral symbolism of light, which is what I said, that Zoroastrians were people who revolved around the whole concept of light. And we discussed this similarity between the Hindu traditions, how adhering to sacred time affects us. Now let's move to the physiological and psychological dimension. Number one is the circadian regulation. Modern chronobiology shows that light exposure at dawn regulates cortisol awakening response. Sunset rituals signal melatonin production. Regular time anchors stabilize sleep cycles. Prayer at Fajr aligns you with the cortisol peak. Maghrib and Isha prepare you for parasympathetic dominance. You are not just praying, you are synchronizing your nerve system with the sun. And this is how we are becoming aligned with nature, the sacred nature. Mental stability through temporal structure. Research in behavioral psychology shows structured daily rituals reduce anxiety. Predictable pauses interrupt stress loops. Micro moments of reflection improve executive functioning. So 5 daily interruptions that will happen through these 5 daily prayers, it resets us the emotional reactivity, reduces impulsivity, increases long-term thinking. Hence, this is spiritual cognitive therapy built into the day. Physiological benefits of posture and prostration, like sujood. It increases cerebral blood flow, stimulates vagal tone, lowers heart rate. Standing, bowing, and prostrating creates a gentle spinal mobilization, parasympathetic activation, and somatic grounding. Ancient rituals understood body-mind unity long before neuroscience vocabulary existed. Number 4, spiritual regulation, the deeper layer. In Islamic metaphysics, especially in the works of sages like Mullah Sadra, time is not neutral. It is a container of spiritual states. Dawn signifies expansion, noon with clarity, sunset with return, and night with intimacy. By praying at these shifts, the soul is trained to expand with light, withdraw with darkness, trust the decline as much as the rise. So they say that faith is when the bird starts to sing even before the first light of dawn has emerged on the horizon. It's saying that the bird knows the system, the divine system that has been running like clockwork since the beginning, so meticulously that there is no doubt in it that it will not happen. So the bird already starts to chirp even before the light has emerged. By praying at these shifts, the soul is trained to expand with light, withdraw with darkness, and trust decline as much as the rise. You become cosmically literate. Now, physiological benefits of posture, and we did this, spiritual regulation. Why ancient systems converge here? 3 reasons. Observation-based spirituality. Before theology, there was sky watching. So sky watching has been part of astrology, astronomy, a lot of wayfinding, a lot of healing methodologies in the ancient times, which has been woven into the 5 times prayer. Transitional times alter consciousness. Modern neuroscience confirms that twilight shifts lead to different brainwave patterns. If you read Joe Dispenza's book, Becoming Supernatural, extremely amazing book. I will share some images from it next week. It shows how the brain waves change, which is why Dr. Joe Dispenza will always say, do your meditation at 4 a.m. And then the symbolic theology of light is awareness, darkness is concealment, transition is revelation, and all three traditions recognize the human soul is most permeable at different thresholds of time. What happens when we ignore this? We get sleep dysregulation, anxiety spikes, loss of rhythm, spiritual fragmentation. Time feels chaotic rather than meaningful. And modernity has removed these ritual anchors. And over here, I would really like to mention how industrialization affected the ancient methodology of inner alignment, because industrialization required the workers to come from 9 to 5. And it did not take into account the need for an afternoon siesta. It did not take into account how we need to wake up really early, go to sleep really early, and it has kind of messed up the human need to align itself with the circadian cycle according to the sun. So now, if we look at prayer from this perspective, and I know that a lot of people look for that essential metaphysical, taste of the sweetness of the meeting with the beloved. But the reason I wanted to share all of this is so that one can understand that the beloved has designed these meeting points with so much intention, with so much goodness. And it's not about the beloved reaping any benefits out of it, but it is me, it is you who reaps the benefit out of it. What that does is that it kind of flips the story around, oh, I need to please God and hence I need to pray, to God wants to give me something. I benefit. I get something out of this prayer. And hence, why would I let go of this opportunity to receive a blessing? And so prayer becomes the ritual of those who are blessed, the people who are blessed, people who have treaded this path successfully and reached where they designed to go. And so across traditions, prayer is not just obedience, it is alignment with solar geometry, biological rhythm, psychological cycles, and spiritual ascent. Islam universalized this into a globally synchronized system, but the archetype is ancient and very human. Final reflection: when you pray at the appointed time, you are saying, I do not move independently of the cosmos. My heart turns as the heavens turn. That is why adherence transforms us physically and we become regulated. Mentally, we stabilize, and spiritually, we ascend. So there's a lot of unveiling. And masters say that this kind of devotion opens fountains of wisdom in the qalb, in the true heart. And this is why perhaps, okay, now this is off. Anyway, so now we can do this exercise where there is this equation on, that is in front of you. I don't know if you guys can see. Can you all see now? Points to ponder.
Yes.
Okay, so if you look at this, it says pain plus reflection plus gratitude will lead to growth. Okay, so there's a difficult situation in life, and then there's reflection on it. But it also needs an element of gratitude. And if we look at Surah Fatiha in our prayer, it is an embodiment of all of it. Okay, so when we say Ar-Rahman and Rahim, and we are saying all praise, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, there is all praises for Allah. That is the gratitude part. There's a praise part. And we begin with that affirmation and we go into deeper and deeper reflection. We will go into the translation and a deeper meaning of Surah Fatiha. Now, these are points to ponder about the 5 times prayer. And over here where it says 5 times a day, silent retreat or river, you can write down over here, take your notes on this page about the hadith of the Prophet. I don't know if I've mentioned it before, that the Prophet asked the Sahaba, and because they lived in the dusty desert and access to water was very limited. So he asks them, do you think that if you had a running stream of water next to you for like, uh, you know, running next to your home, and if you were to go and bathe in that river like 5 times a day, would any speck of dirt remain on your body? Now you're in a desert and you're constantly in the midst of windy, very sandy winds. And the prophet is saying, would you be dusty? Would you be dirty? And the friends of the prophet said, no, there's no way we will be dirty or dusty if we were taking a shower 5 times a day in that stream of water. The prophet said, your mind also gets polluted. So throughout the day, there's a lot of dust in the mind that we collect through our interactions with the people in the world and the affairs and the circumstances. And so the prophet said, in the same way, your prayer is like that river of water that you can go and clean your mental space with 5 times a day. And this is where I find namaz so beautiful that I like to go and pray 5 times a day, even though right now I do it 3 times a day because I combine the prayers, but I would eventually like to go and do it in 5 different portions because that's what it's meant to do. It's supposed to have that gap in the middle so that you can reap the highest benefit from it. And the noise versus the voice. So what prayer does is that it becomes a constant mechanism to settle down the noise and the dust and let the voice within us, which is the clarity and wisdom, to rise. And the last point that I want to share here, and I would like to leave you with, we can discuss it, I can receive your queries during the week around it. You get what you become. All right, you don't get what you want. This is also Dr. Joe Dispenza saying, which I really resonate with. You don't get what you want, you get what you become. And we read that dialogue between God and the human, which said, you're becoming, you're becoming, you're becoming. So prayer is what changes us from within. And hence that becomes a way of changing what is outside. Which is why during the week, I got a lot of queries around the disturbing events in the world and how it has been so heavy and how the world feels like such a place of turmoil and chaos and heaviness and pain right now. And this is where the key lies, that we feel like we're helpless and powerless, but Quran is giving us an extremely powerful potion to change the world, is to change yourself and change yourself with more deliberate consciousness, more deliberate intention, and more mindfulness. All right, so here I will end the me constantly talking. And if there's anything you'd like to share, you can share now. And then, within a few moments, I would like to start the meditation. And I'm going to give this break because I want to take a break from talking. I've been talking so much that it's not even good for me.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
In the earlier lectures, we spoke about how if some of us are finding it challenging to get to prayer, or in my case, often delay prayer, or be distracted, it could be, and you introduced it early on in this PDF, that it could be because of early childhood attachment and the environment, if it was punitive, for instance, and when prayer became performance, then there's a kind of trauma associated with prayer unconsciously, and we can't discipline our way into this worship because safety has to be established in the body first. So we're speaking about, yeah.
I'm distracted actually. I didn't hear your question. I'm so sorry. I suddenly realized that because the audio was not on my main system, I just hope that I have a recording of this. So I got distracted. So just a second. I don't know what is done. It's done now. I don't know. Okay. Okay, now I'm present.
You have the read notes activated, right?
Yeah, but it's on the main system. And if there's no sound in the main system, the read had nothing to hear. So I don't know. Okay. It is what it is. I'm here now with you. Sorry, earlier I wasn't present. Okay, please go ahead.
If we can't discipline our way into truly embodying worship and availing all these amazing benefits our divine has created for us, we don't do it for him, it's for us. We have to feel safe in our body, right? And if there's a stress response associated to prayer to begin with because of our early childhood experiences, some of which we don't even remember, and going into the story, it doesn't have value here, but you can tell that there's something that's not quite right about that relationship right now. What is a way? So we're speaking about all the benefits, and you've so beautifully laid out the value of prayer in all of these ways and how it is valued in ancient wisdoms, and it's all connected. But when the body doesn't feel safe, what are some of the sort of what is like one small way one can heal? And I know general healing techniques and tools. I have a whole toolkit when it comes to healing. But is there something specific to prayer that one can practice that's easy while still honoring whatever's coming up in the body?
Um, so there can be different kinds of fears in the body, right? There can be different ways in which we feel uh, that pain or whatever that we're feeling. And if the fear, say, for example, lies in the fact that if I don't pray, I'll be punished, say, for example. Now, it could be completely ambiguous, and we don't know what the fear is and where the pain lies and what the reason for it is. And we can go into investigating that through a mindful checklist or doing mind dumping around prayer. Like you said, you have a whole toolkit. One of the ways that I highly recommend is to jot down all of your negative thoughts around prayer and see where it starts to get flowy. And then you start realizing, hey, I didn't realize I had this memory around prayer or whatever. And inshallah, in one or two coming sessions, I will be doing a meditation around there. So to become cognizant of what the fear is and how and where the body is feeling it is one way. And then working towards changing that narrative within through different kinds of affirmations that we can build for ourselves or design for ourselves to heal us. One of our friends had messaged me today saying that I have a lot of inner noise about how I am so bad and I don't have I'm blameworthy for being who I am. I'm not good enough, or whatever the negative dialogue was. And it's like an overarching loud noise inside. And I just told her that you have to keep repeating and keep on saying to yourself, I am not my thoughts. I am the observer of my thoughts, and thoughts are not facts. And that can really nail a lot of the inner noise if we make it into a practice. So it has to be practiced like an ongoing, intentional, mindful conversation with the self and reminding ourselves of the reality. The reality is that thoughts are just being produced by a mindless mind that is creating a concoction of thought based on physical experiences, past and future, but they don't necessarily hold any truth. So that is one thing. The other thing that, please don't share it with anyone, is that if you have been like a person who prays all the time, like you never miss your prayer, and you do it out of the fear of praying, for some time stop praying. Just break that habit. And when you will do that, what's going to happen is that you will learn to experience the anxiety of not praying. And also then having this conversation with Allah, I'm scared. What's going to happen? Are bad things going to happen to me if I don't pray? Is he going to get angry? Is he going to da 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 da? And then finding evidence of God holding you in his safety and warmth. And that way you can break out of that fear motivation of prayer. Because, anyways, worshiping for fear means my fear is my God, right? If the intention is your fear, I'm fearing the fear, and I'm wondering that's the God. So, in order to make that turn back to the true divine, you have to feel safe with the divine, and then see where the conversation takes you. I can see a hand up. Yes, Daniel, go ahead.
Hi. So I wanted to ask, okay, so Fajr is the one namaz that I occasionally do, but I don't wake up at Fajr. So I normally read it on the way to, out, like I'm heading to the office, so I'll read it on the way out. But it's always qaza, right? So I start the namaz off with like qaza, and I hate being late. And it's like I'm starting off the day kaza, like, and it really bothers me. So,
Okay.
why
Okay.
is there a hack for this?
Yes. 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 Yes.
And, and
Okay. So my teacher who's Sheikh Riaz Walji, and he is a student of Sheikh Arif. Um, everyone knows he prays his Fajr at 8 o'clock in the morning. He says that when you awaken is your morning. And so he has his own theory around it. And that's really good because in a lot of countries, time cannot be followed according to the sun. Say, like Fajr is happening at 2 a.m.,
Mhm.
right? And that's what happens in the UK, and that's where he lives. So he's made it into a point that at 8 o'clock every morning he does his Fajr. And a lot of times I do that too, because why not be able to immerse yourself in that prayer or take the blessings of that prayer with a positive note throughout your day due to this one thought that you were late, even though you're doing it?
So
And
can I just remove the kaza part of the out of the intention?
yeah, but always have the understanding that the time assigned for Fajr, which is that time when the sun, which is aligned with the sun, will be most beneficial to you.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
I understand that,
Perfect.
but
So yeah,
okay,
you can.
okay.
I don't say kaza. I also don't say kaza because I have a very strong memory bound to that word kaza as very punitive and very harsh. And I don't
Yeah,
like to bring,
that's exactly how I feel when I say that word and then I start praying, it's like everything's off.
yeah, so don't.
Okay, cool.
No.
Thank you.
We'll catch Sheikh Riaz. If
Okay,
anything
thanks.
goes wrong, we will talk to him. But yeah, he openly says it. That, when you wake up, start your day on a good note, and that's your morning. That's the first thing you begin your day with. So I was saying this last time, right? Like the Hindus, they do their morning puja. That's the note I begin with. I don't want to begin my day without that blessing, but I want to do it with complete positivity. So I hope that answers. Yes, Saman, do you think you got your answer?
Yes. Thank you.
So, in all of this, what I feel is that when we are building this very, very intimate relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I have been through the whole formal education, the madrasa, the formalities, the mainstream, the rigid Islam. And whatever I'm sharing here, I am saying it with responsibility because then I have gone in and done that research. Definitely, my work is extremely progressive compared to the mainstream, and they will never even try to agree because it breaks a lot of old ideologies. But what I do want to invite everyone to is that there is this real God who has a real relationship with us. And if we really, really believed in the real presence and the reality of this entity, who is constantly reminding us that he's merciful, we wouldn't be asking these questions, right? We would take some responsibility to maneuver the worship in a way where we can understand this relationship better, like make this relationship better with our best friend. Because Rumi says there are as many paths as there are breaths. And if God is truly the real, loving, merciful God, then everything about prayer becomes about, oh, what a gift. My friend has given me this gift. And, I'm taking this gift. Why would he care? Why would he care about these little petty things? Because if I really believe he's so magnanimous, if I really believe he's so generous, he's so forgiving, he's so loving. And one more thing that I want to share, and I heard this hadith from Sheikh Hakim Murad of the Cambridge Islamic College in one of his talks, and I had shared it on the group. It said that the Prophet said to his friends that in your time, if you practice, nine parts of your faith, and if you just leave the 1/10 of the faith, you will be asked about what you've left. But there will come a time where practicing faith will become so difficult that if you only practice 1/10 of the faith, you will still be saved because it's so difficult. And Allah is not a punitive God. Allah is not a vengeful, angry old guy waiting to punish us. Allah is the one who is love. Allah is love. And if we really want to immerse ourselves in this relationship, Rumi says there is only one reality, the lover, the beloved, and love. It's all one. It's all one, the lover, the beloved, and love. And it took me such a long time to understand that we are not fooling anyone, we are not manipulating anyone when we are saying, like the story of Sabbath, that the Jews, they would put their nets into the water on Friday because they weren't allowed to fish on Saturday, and then they would pull their nets on Sunday, and then they would say to God, we didn't do any fishing on Saturday. So that's how we become sometimes when we get so convoluted with the rules and the laws and how to manipulate them so that we get it right. But Allah is saying in the Quran, you think you're fooling me, you're fooling yourself. So the real thing is, I'm trying, Allah, and I want to be close to you, and I'm completely sincere in my intention to come close to you, and just take that and embrace me. Embrace me, and Allah will embrace. And then you can think of like your nana or someone who's given you a lot of love, and then think, Allah made that person. Allah is the source of that love. If that person would embrace me, even if I never prayed a day in my life, why would Allah separate me from him? Why would he bash me for anything like that? So the truth about Allah will start to show up in the way we are interacting with Allah moment to moment. And that will show the real relationship. So I don't want everyone else to get super, super late who are waiting for the meditation. If there are any more questions, then I will take them after Kulsum. Okay, after the meditation. Okay. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to switch the sound system. Hopefully the meditation will get recorded. Okay, A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajim. Let us get into comfortable position and gently let the heaviness of the lids of our eyes be pulled down with gravity.